I woke up to the sound of engines growling where silence used to live. At first, I thought it was a tractor or maybe road work on the county line. But when I stepped out onto my porch, mug of black coffee warming my hand, I saw machines clawing through the edge of my pasture. A line of men in hard hats drove survey stakes right into the earth I had tended for over a decade. And in the middle of it all, standing like a queen at her coronation, was Margaret Dane, president of our neighborhood's HOA. She wore heels that sank into the soft dirt, a tailored blazer too pristine for this place, and sunglasses that reflected the bulldozers like mirrors. She smiled when she noticed me. "Mr. Cole," she called, voice slicing through the morning air, "you're about to be part of something extraordinary. The HOA has approved an airstrip. This will transform property values." I nearly laughed. "On my land?" "On land designated for community improvement," she said smoothly, unfolding a packet of papers stamped with seals that looked official enough to fool the casual eye. "You'll be compensated, of course. Generously." I didn't answer. Instead, I watched the machines bite into the soil, right through where I had buried my dog 2 years earlier. Generously. The word tasted bitter. I'd dealt with liars before. Margaret was polished, but she made the same mistake all hustlers make. She thought I was blind. I spent the rest of that day pretending to be the stubborn farmer she clearly believed me to be. I let her talk about progress and community advancement, let her wave those counterfeit-looking permits like holy scripture. But when she left, smug and convinced she'd bullied me into silence, I began to work. Most of my neighbors thought I had retired early from a construction business. That was partly true. But what I never told them, what Margaret Dane could never have guessed, was that for 35 years I had served as an inspector for federal infrastructure projects. Roads, bridges, pipelines, airstrips. I could read blueprints the way other men read comic books. And as soon as I saw her documents, I recognized the cracks. Wrong signatures, missing agency notations, impossible timelines. She was running a con, and not a small one. That night, long after the work crews had gone, I dressed in black and walked my land. I knew where to step, where the shadows stretched thick. I photographed everything. License plates of the contractor trucks, serial numbers on equipment, even carelessly discarded schedules left taped inside a trailer. I moved with the patience of someone who had done this countless times before. Because I had. It didn't take long before I noticed I wasn't the only one watching. An old man from 2 houses down, Henry Lott, sat on his porch with a notebook. He nodded to me like we'd just admitted a secret to each other. Later, he'd tell me he used to be a state auditor. He'd been keeping records since the first rumors of the airstrip started. Detailed logs, every delivery, every visitor, every hour the machines worked past curfew. We weren't alone in this fight, but Margaret had her own allies. Her nephew, a nervous young man named Travis, trailed her everywhere, carrying binders he never seemed to read. I caught him once whispering, "Aunt Margaret, maybe we should wait for real clearance." She hushed him instantly, her grip on his arm tight enough to leave marks. Then there was her husband, Dale, who laughed too loud whenever people asked technical questions. "Margaret handles the details," he always said, "a family bound by secrets and fear." Days passed. My evidence grew. With Henry's notes and my photographs, we had enough to raise serious questions. Still, Margaret moved fast. She hosted soirees at the clubhouse, wine flowing, glossy brochures passed around showing future luxury hangars and exclusive aviation living. She pitched wealthy families, convincing them to invest in the dream of flying their own planes from backyard to sky. I attended one of those meetings, hat low over my eyes. She didn't recognize me in the crowd. Her voice dripped with false conviction as she said, "Our permits are in order. This project has unanimous board approval. In 6 months, we'll be a community of pioneers." I wanted to stand and expose her lies right there, but timing mattered. The longer I stayed quiet, the deeper her fraud would dig, and the harder it would be for her to wriggle free when the truth surfaced. Not everyone believed her. Some parents worried about noise, crashes, and fumes. Others salivated at the promise of doubled property values. Neighbors whispered about me. Some grateful, others calling me a bitter holdout, blocking progress. Lines were drawn. The turning point came when Travis showed up at my porch one evening, eyes wide, voice shaking. "Mr. Cole, you're right," he confessed. "She's lying. The permits are fake. She said everything has to be finished before federal inspectors get wind of it. She even bragged that county officials already took care of their vacations." He slid a recorder across my table. On it, his aunt's voice was clear as glass, discussing bribes, deadlines, even strategies to pressure elderly homeowners into selling once the noise made their lives unbearable. I knew then the stakes weren't just about an illegal runway. Margaret was running a racket, laundering HOA funds, forging documents, buying off politicians. When I finally confronted her at a community meeting, the room was packed, tension thick enough to chew. News cameras lined the back. She stood at the podium, rehearsed smile, spouting progress and prosperity. That's when I raised my hand. "Madam President," I said, calm but carrying. "Can you explain why the permits you filed cite federal orders that expired 3 years ago? Or why the signatures don't match the current zoning officer's handwriting?" Her smile faltered. Murmurs rippled. I stepped forward, pulling out my own binder, a presentation thick with photographs, timelines, citations. I laid out every violation with surgical precision. The room fell silent, except for the shuffle of reporters scribbling notes. Margaret tried to laugh it off. "Mr. Cole has too much time on his hands," she said. "He reads things on the internet." But her voice cracked because everyone could see the truth. I wasn't guessing. I was dismantling her operation, line by line, with the authority of someone who knew exactly what he was talking about. That night, videos of the confrontation went viral. Clips of me quoting regulations spread across social media. Strangers asking, "Who is this guy? How does he know so much?" Margaret's empire of lies began to wobble. She hit back hard. Lawsuits, restraining orders, smear campaigns, and the local press painting me as a paranoid farmer blocking progress. She drained my savings with endless motions, forced me off parts of my own land. Neighbors I'd known for years crossed the street to avoid me. She thought she had me cornered, but she never saw the bigger play. At midnight, after one especially vicious hearing, I drafted an email. The address ended with .gov. Attached were files, Travis's recordings, Henry's logs, my photographs. I pressed send. 2 weeks later, black SVUs rolled into our neighborhood. Men and women with federal badges stepped out. The lead agent's voice carried like thunder. "All construction is to cease immediately. This is a federal investigation." Margaret shrieked, waving her worthless county permits. "You can't do this. We have approval." The agent didn't flinch. Local approvals are irrelevant when federal aviation law is violated. Any continued work will result in criminal prosecution. Neighbors gaped as federal marshals began seizing equipment. Trucks, bulldozers, stacks of stolen HOA records, all impounded. Margaret's carefully groomed investors scattered like pigeons. I watched quietly until Agent Rivera turned to me. "Director Cole," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Thank you for your cooperation. We'll need your full report by Monday." Margaret froze, mouth open. "Director, what?" she whispered. The crowd erupted in whispers. Finally, they understood. I wasn't just a farmer. I had been for decades a senior official in federal infrastructure oversight. Retired, yes, but my authority remained active. The entire time Margaret had been scheming, she'd been trespassing against the one person who could bury her with a single phone call. The fallout was swift and merciless. Margaret was indicted on dozens of charges: fraud, embezzlement, bribery, elder exploitation. Her assets were frozen, her allies scattered, her husband pled guilty for a lighter sentence. County officials who had accepted her bribes were dragged into courtrooms, stripped of office, handed prison terms. Investors received refunds through a federal victim compensation program. Elderly homeowners regained their peace. The wetlands her crews had torn were earmarked for restoration. And Travis, the kid who chose truth over family, received whistleblower protections and a scholarship. He visits sometimes, and I see the weight lift from his shoulders. Henry, too, was recognized for his meticulous records. Turns out his logs formed the backbone of the financial case. As for me, I returned to my fields. The machines were gone, the stakes pulled up. Birds came back to roost on the fence posts. Some nights I sit on my porch, coffee in hand, and listen to the silence I fought for. Neighbors stop by more now, offering thanks, pies, awkward apologies. I don't hold grudges. People are easily swayed by promises of gold. What matters is that the land is safe and the fraud is finished. The irony still makes me smile. Margaret Dane thought she was outsmarting a simple retiree. She never imagined she was trying to build her empire on the land of the very man trained to dismantle such schemes. She played checkers. I played chess. And in the end, justice prevailed.